Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Today, folks, it is a pleasure to be here with Dan Mickelon and Ben Brayshaw. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, Seth. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so far ahead in the show, I don't even know if I said my name or who we are, what we're doing, or the show title. I cannot wait to get into the information with you guys today because it's going to be so valuable, especially for a large part of the population.
Well, I think so. I know where I am. I'm here on Money on Tap, Seth. But we got a great show today. I think it's going to be a good show. It's going to step away from our kind of baby boomer, pre-retiree listener and step a little bit more towards our millennial listener who might be trying to figure out how to start retirement, get retired, and some of these things will be very relevant for people who are looking at retirement in even just the near future and just trying to fine-tune how to get there and do it well. And I think that's really what's going to, so there's a little bit of something for everybody here, but this is definitely our target for our millennial listeners, which we have a number of for sure.
Yeah, it's an important segment of the economy. I mean, millennials make up 45% of the workforce today.
And 100% of the people who live at home.
Yeah, they've taken the brunt of this whole pandemic issue in our economy. There's no doubt about it. Looking at the different generations and how they've fared through this, the impact for these guys has been absolutely tremendous.
Well, as a Gen Xer myself, I think we have the right to make fun of all the millennials. That's part of being a Gen Xer.
Well, since we personally created the internet, which they have taken to new heights or use at an all-time high level, it's hard to believe how really what happens from generation to generation. I was just talking to my 16-year-old about this, and the things that he has grown up with, never knew, rotary phone, cordless phone.
Corded
it's just
phone.
Hard. Yeah, corded phone. It's really hard to put into perspective, and they just laugh, like your life was what?
Oh, I can totally one-up this conversation. I actually grew up on a farm in a very remote area where we had a party line, which neither of you know what that is. Do you know what that is?
Oh, I know what it is. That's my grandparents talking to me right there. You actually had a party line growing up?
I actually grew up with a party line when I was a young kid.
I thought you were talking about the 900 numbers paid by the minute. Was that kind of party line?
No. No, I mean, you pick up the phone and everybody on the street had a different time period when they got to use the phone. It was all one line. So,
wow.
Yeah,
Could you listen into other people's conversations?
Oh, yeah, you pick up the phone and so-and-so would be using it. Everyone had their own personal time unless you had an emergency, and then you got on and you said, hey, listen, I got an emergency. I got to call the doctor or something, and someone would get off.
I feel like there's some good stories, like some good prank stories or something along this.
Oh, yeah, you were very careful what you said. I mean, you honestly could hear people picking up the phone. And they'd be like your neighbor, and you're like, well, I can't talk about my neighbor on this line. So,
yeah, you got us beat.
Yeah, no, I definitely got you beat on that one. I grew up with that, and I remember we had problems with our phone one time. We had to run down to our neighbors to use their phone, which was in their barn, actually. So,
that's where most people keep their barn or keep their barn? Is they keep their barn?
They keep their
real close to the
phone in the barn. Well, I also was thinking about the fact that when we got our first computer when I was in high school, it was a Tandy 1000, I think TX or RX or something X. Do you remember the Tandys, guys? Remember?
Well, you beat me there because I was stuck with a word processor, which was like that was a gift considering my sisters, 6 and 8 years older than me, were on the typewriter with the whiteout doing reports.
Yes. Yep. So those were some big advancements. I remember I played Atari on a black and white TV. Try to figure that one out.
I was the only kid in the neighborhood with Coleco. I got stuck with Coleco.
Centipede. Those are games, guys. Those are games, millennials.
What are we talking about? We are talking about planning for millennials here this week on Money on Tap. And you know what? It's going to be really good. It's going to translate into pretty much anybody that's interested in retirement planning. There's something here for everybody. That's the point. And what does that mean for us at Money on Tap? Financial planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. That's what all of us do here. Planners and partners with Brayshaw Financial Group. We're going to be bringing to the table a 3-dimensional perspective for you. We want to take a look at all sides of the issues. We want to bring really that full independent planning perspective to the table for you. So you know, hey, this is what the planners are talking about. These are the things that we need to go ahead and bring to the kitchen table and have a conversation around. And after that, or even during that, frankly, here's Ben's cell phone number for you to give him a call. It's 855-226-8551. And believe it or not, yeah, he does have a cell phone, not a party line anymore, folks. And you can also reach us all at that number or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And that's enough out of me because it's time for Money in the News. So you folks are Americans, and I do not believe that you're average Americans. For none, you're listening to Money on Tap, which separates you from the herd. So, you know, some of this you can go ahead and put a pin in your cap. But the headline here is Americans' average credit score hits a 13-year high. Thank you so much, Lucas Manfredi from Fox Business, for bringing us this content. We're grateful, and it's so good to hear that, you know, at least you guys here today are raising the bar for the rest of the Americans out there. And as a matter of fact, in New Hampshire, did you notice that in the article? You guys are highlighted among the best of the nation. So kudos.
There's really no surprise in that. Appreciate you bringing it out, though. But yeah, we know what we're doing over here in New Hampshire. Just FYI. But I'm kind of disappointed that Vermont beat us.
And Minnesota topping it all off. Can you believe that? I know we've had our Minneapolis conversations here, but that's one thing they seem to have gotten a handle on is managing credit card debt and debt in general.
Well, you don't need any credit cards if you're just looting Target.
That's true.
I mean, come on. Let's break it down to the real truth here.
No interest rate if you can stuff it in a duffel bag.
Sorry for the cheap shot, but I had to add that out there. Dan, Massachusetts hits a couple spots below us. In Washington State, I guess that's another duffel bag state. So whatever.
Yeah, we kind of join forces there with Washington here in Oregon. Just, you know, we kind of get swept under the rug regularly, but you know, I'm pretty sure we're not far behind you.
The duffel bag state. Yeah, that's a classic right there. Well, you know, it is good to see. I mean, unfortunately, the benefit of, you know, pandemics and being locked down and all the different, you know, spending habits that changed. I know our spending habits changed. We actually cut cable. We just said, hey, listen, we're going to get rid of some of this junk in our life, trim it up. We don't know what the world looks like. We don't need this stuff to survive. And, you know,
Did you finally let go of that NASCAR subscription that cost you like $300 a month?
I do not have a NASCAR subscription, and I don't have a party line anymore either. So, yeah, no. But, no, we trimmed a ton of that stuff, and it was great. I mean, it was really relieving. Didn't you just say you cut cable?
I just did, yeah.
Man, it takes it must have taken 3 or 4 months before you actually pulled the trigger, though, right?
Oh, it did, yeah. I'm still working on where to find NFL Network. I'm struggling with that right now.
Yeah, well,
I got you, Dan. I got you. And this is coming from a guy that has never had cable. Wow. Unless you want to count Ben and I and roommates in college, that's about as far back as I go with cable.
Yeah. So. Well, you know, people have been saving, and that's clearly an earmark to it. But I think that's also, you know, echoed right into the investment world because there's been more investing by people than ever in history. You know, I mean, there's more new investors than ever before all at once in a year, which is crazy. So that stuff's all translating to our economy one way or another.
I don't know what the number was, but I remember early in the pandemic when the stimulus first started hitting, there was some statistics around how much of that was getting applied to household debt, which was not the intention, not really stimulating the economy, but certainly from a personal ledger perspective, probably made a lot of sense.
Yeah. It was probably the wise move to do at the point. So, yeah.
It'd be nice if we could really, truly draw some correlation there and have an economist do a deep dive on some of those numbers and how they really work out. But here's my take on it. That average American has now started listening to Money on Tap. And because of that, they've taken care of some business. They've done some investing. They've taken this advice at heart. And there you go, folks. Congratulations, Money on Tap listeners. Coming up second for us here, we do have, it's another fair and balanced. No, take that back. It's CNBC and it's Katie Doerr's CFP that is bringing to us that caring for aging family members can be very costly, right? So do not miss out on these tax breaks. So how many people are in that transition? Roughly, 19% of Americans provided unpaid care for an adult with health or functional needs in 2020, according to National Alliance for Caregiving. So of those people, there can be some significant tax breaks, and we want to make sure that you're aware and taking advantage of all those opportunities to lower some of your taxes.
Yeah, this is a big piece for kind of the millennial / pre-retiree. I mean, there's just so many different age brackets that are caring for family, and if you're not aware of the ability to deduct some of these expenses, and that you probably could itemize. I mean, a lot of people know that the number of people who itemized their taxes and broke down those expenses to deduct them off their income dropped. Trump had raised the automatic deduction that we all get and doubled it so married filing jointly went from like $12,000 to $24,000. Boom, you just get $24,000 deduction. Once you can prove that you have more than $24,000 in deductions, then you got to itemize and actually break those down. So we went from 20 some odd percent of America's itemizing to like 7% with that tax law change. But if you have an elderly parent or there's a relationship test around this as a qualifying relative, I mean there's a lot of things that can put you over the deductions very, very quickly in the expenses and costs that you naturally incur and are not even thinking about.
Yeah, 80% of people caring for an adult relative, have an average cost of over $7,200 per year, which is well on your way to $24,000.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's not counting your own costs and so forth. But a qualifying relative, this is kind of an interesting piece. So if you have somebody and you're in this position, feel free to give us a call, 855-226-8551. But a qualifying relative is someone who earns less than $4,300 a year, and they essentially live with you or equivalent to living with you. So there's some tests around that as well. And then once you go over the was it $7,500 medical expenses? Once you go over that, you get to write that off. Everything above that,
7.5% of your take-home income is the threshold there. So if you're exceeding that, caring for combination of elders and children within the household, take a close look at that because you might be able to deduct it.
Yeah.
Another write-off here that can be added to that is the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. And also caregivers may also be eligible for a separate $500 dependent credit. And then also there was an interesting piece here around the $1,400 stimulus payment that even if that relative had claimed that $1,400 stimulus payment, if they had recently moved in with you or transitioned to you in 2020, you might be eligible for that as well. So next on Money on Tap from our favorite, the Wall Street Journal. For Allbirds, Warby Parker, it's a lovely name, Warby Parker, and other fall IPOs, guess what's out? Greed. And doing good is in this fall's lineup of Rent the Runway. Chobani aims to highlight more than just the bottom line here, folks. That's the takeaway, is that if you have a good idea, you better wrap that thing in some charitable causes or something that's tying into the environment.
wrap that thing in a journal costs. Oh man, what is our country coming to? Yeah, let's launch the greediest capitalistic new company we possibly can and say we're all about doing good.
That's our wrapper here. Yeah. But, I think some of the things that are interesting is that they do in the article, I think I failed to actually mention other than where it was from the Wall Street Journal. Want to give credit due to Corey Drybush. And, that authenticity is kind of another factor here. You guys always letting me go forward with the big names and the big people here. Yeah, no, you got to be authentic about this. You just can't put that wrapper of, social justice or whatever your mission or aim is here. There has to be a level of transparency that they're trying to kind of figure out in this whole IPO notion.
Yeah, the environmental, social, and governance, the ESG conversation of what, these companies are trying to, this is all part of that kind of that woke mentality is trying to prove your engagement in society and this kind of, whatever culture people are trying to build in here. It's frustrating and difficult. It's a constant moving piece, and I think the world is kind of getting fed up with it. But these companies are always trying to mitigate those issues as they try to, engage in our society, right? And they're trying to figure out they don't want to be on the political out. They won't, they prefer to be on the political in, but even that is puts you on the out with another group, and so there's this constant wave of that world that is very complicated in our lives as we speak today. But some of these companies actually specifically try to use, kind of like the sandals from Allbush, it's just the idea of something that's completely renewable and it's less wearing on the, the globe, the overall environment, and there is some real value in that. I totally do agree with that. I think I feel there's a lot of less sincere companies out there that are kind of foreshadowing that they are,
for sure, a lot of it's marketing. That's what it is. Bottom line is they're trying to draw in that customer who, has a concern, and they're much more likely to get that group of people's attention for sure, and make them, repeat and long-term customers. But, from the economic standpoint, there's probably benefit to them. They're getting some kind of write-off for whatever it is they contribute to the given cause, and that's something that can fall through to the bottom line and be value to a stock investor.
Yeah, absolutely. I said Allbush, but I meant Allbirds and Warby. There's some companies out there that really are trying to engage the do-good. So I don't want to take away from that entirely.
I think you created a new company there. Maybe it's the Anheuser-Busch that repackages itself under Allbush, and they can be an ESG company. I think you're right. I think the desire here, some things authentic, some not as much. But I really like one of the takeaways here, which was from the Allbirds, that said that their goal is to create standards for the companies going public, that claim to be committed for the environmental, social, governance, ESG issues, and that they also see that there's the real potential to be more profitable within those directions or those directives in their governance. And those might be, idealistic, but what a great idea.
The only thing I think is a little concerning to me when I was reading the article is that 37%, listing volume of the number of IPOs that are coming out, which was only number one to the year 2000, which I thought was kind of unique before we saw, kind of like the early 2000 crash. And, it's just kind of a little, you see all these companies going public because there's money, and they're all they're selling their company for more than they think it's worth, than them keeping it themselves and allowing it to grow intrinsically themselves. So, why are they all launching? And so those are some concerns. I would just say that that's kind of on my radar of buyer beware, watch out. Where's the market going?
There's certainly valuation issues when you see these IPOs, and the company's value, triples pre-market and it's crashed to half by lunch, and triples again by close.
I know.
There's got to be some fundamental analysis happening here, and apparently there's not a lot. And if you're swinging that much in a day, your first day of trading, then there's probably some issues there.
Yeah, I just thinking what's going in my head, because there's so many people that are, using Robinhood and so forth, and that thing crashed on its day, and then it spiked, and then it crashed again, and it's like, these things, no one knows what these things are really, really worth, and it's hard to get a good feeling.
Folks, that's going to do it for us in Money in the News. You're listening to Money on Tap, and right after we take this quick break, we're going to get into planning for millennials. Cannot wait to dive into this with you guys. We're going to take a quick break. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You're listening to Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this show, Money on Tap, and Ben and I have been financial planners for years and years, and our goal here with you is to bring you into the room, have the conversations that we have. We think these are critical conversations for you, but we understand this is a limited space, and what we'd love to do is to open the doors to you with us at Brayshaw Financial Group, so you could experience what it means to have three-dimensional planning in your life. Let's take a look at all sides of your situation, your scenario, and see how we can put together the best plan possible, taking into account your risk. How much can you have in the market? How much do we need to have set aside and doing different things for your life? That's what we do as planners, how we engage with you, and we welcome you to do that with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, if you have $250,000 that are investable assets today, our planning is free to you. We want you to have the playbook to have a successful experience in retirement. Give us a call, 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Ben and I welcome you to Brayshaw Financial for complete wealth management.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And we're going to do a little bit of three-dimensional investing here with you folks, getting started in planning for millennials. And speaking of started, that's really number one for us here. If we were to say anything, what would we recommend? Let's start early, folks. Let's get the ball rolling, and do not rely on your high school education and whatever class you took there. I don't even know if they do balance the checkbook class anymore. It's kind of back in our Gen X, right? But let's talk about that. What do we do to get started early?
Well, I think, one of the points that, in the conversation and the topic and the research that we did in the show, education was the kind of key millennial interest. So if you're a millennial, you're listening to the show because you're interested in learning, and 68% of millennials do some sort of education prior to investing or want to do education. So that says a lot, because that's unlike any age group, age bracket out there and how they invest. They usually just call the financial professional. They call us and they say, here's my money. Don't call me unless you need to, and take care of it. So
That was definitely the one statistic where there's a lot of measures here where that as a generation, the millennials seem to be in kind of more of the concerning end. But one of the things that we saw as exciting and hopeful for that generation is that they were intrigued around the education, and they're willing to get engaged, and they wanted to participate in that. So there's hope there. But on the more concerning end, a simple survey went out, and 63% of millennials responded as they consider themselves to be highly educated when it comes to financial matters, but unfortunately, only 14% of them were able to get this little quiz done correctly.
So that is kind of sad that, so many people think they're highly educated in the financial world. The truth is that the majority of the world isn't, and I would tell people that even us as financial planners, we're always learning. We're always learning. I mean, we were on a call today and we were learning about an investment strategy that was tremendously interesting and not relevant for this call. But we were like, tell us more about that. I want to know more about that, because there's constant evolution in the financial world. There's constant, new opportunities and ways people are taking advantage of, either addressing taxes or, managing income plans or figuring out how to, tweak out a little more gain in a sector, and what people are doing to evolve. And, so learning and education, it's not limited to just the millennials, it's everybody. And people just don't have enough education, or I would say the time on top of all that they're doing, the amount of time at their work. And, I was speaking to my nephew who's, in computer science, and, he's super excited. He's, he got a raise and he's very happy, but he was talking about the amount of weight it was on his shoulders, wondering if he was going to get the raise or not get the raise, and whether he was just going to look for another job because he's super valuable and super capable, and he's not sure whether he wanted to shift one way or another. And, hey, I look at that and say to myself, so many people are living with weights on their shoulders that to spend time on top of everything else to learn about all the financial matters, that the 3-question quiz that we're going to talk about a little later, of course people didn't get it right.
One of the resources that I would want to highlight for anybody starting or in this journey is our website. It's a phenomenal resource. You can go to brayshawfinancial.com, or you can find us at yourmoneyontap.com, and just have a listen to or watch through some of the videos that are there, and be a student. Pick up a pen, grab a piece of paper, start writing down some of your questions that you have, and that gives us an opportunity to engage with you and just take that conversation to the next level. And speaking of the next level, it's time for number 2. Let's talk about participation in your 401k and retirement plans.
Yeah, this is such a big concept and just such an important thing to do. If you're with an employer who offers a plan like that, and most do these days, as soon as you can, you want to begin to participate in that. Specifically in 401k, because for those out there that are offering a match, it's literally free money to you.
And I think the conversation just gets so deep so quick, right? So we're talking about, hey, here's your 401k, and everyone walks into a job. Yeah, sign me up. I don't know. First of all, you got decisions on whether you want the Roth option or the traditional 401k side, so pre-tax or post-tax contributions. Then you need to figure out how do you want to allocate, and someone's usually recommending some time-dated fund, which is, in my opinion, and the reason there are more lawsuits out there than anything else in these funds is because of these time-dated funds, So, is that really the right investment for you or not? And there's just so many pieces to that. So participate, yes. Get help, yes. And those are the types of things that you really need to kind of break down. That's the number one issue I think I have a concern with we're talking about these broad topics, and we were chatting about this earlier. You got these broad topics, and we've done shows on every one of these items that go deep. And in our other shows, which I would say, hey, go listen to our Roth show. There's probably 5 of those out there over the course of the last 5 or 6 years we've been doing radio. So there's a lot of things to consider inside of determining whether pre-tax, post-tax, or even a piece of both.
Yeah, there's no doubt our library of shows is a great place to get educated. There's a lot of good information out there.
One of the things I want to kind of give a shout out to here is maybe you are the millennial that has their own company and is starting to get some traction here in, getting the right kind of talent on board and keeping that talent on board. And part of what is across the board for most employers can be this 401k planning piece. So how do you find the right partnership to, take care of this financial education piece, or help out with your employees understanding what a 401k is and how it works? So we've got some of these partnerships that we've aligned ourselves with out there that do award-winning jobs of creating those platforms and those educational pieces and those engagement for the employer and the employee to do it well. And maybe you're one of the people out there that's already been doing the 401k or supporting that at your your company. But maybe you just continue to have this question come back from HR of what is that? What are they actually doing over there in that 401k? Because everybody comes to me and asks questions about their retirement. Part of this process should be working with the right advisors to align you and the value proposition of your company to your employees to keep that talent engaged and moving forward in those 401k plans.
Seth, you bring up a really good point on the 401k space. And, we handle those, and we have a number of different advisors that can handle all of this stuff. But the piece about the 401k space, if you're really going to twist this around and say, hey, listen, how am I going to make this thing a powerful unit for my company? And how does this save me money, or how does this make our company more efficient? There's actually a statistic out there that says that 20% of a person's workday is worried about their personal financial health. And that if you do a meeting quarterly in your office, you can cut that in half. That means you can gain a 10% increase in your work in your office just by solving a financial question for people. Is just they want to feel engaged in their finances. So 20% of someone's workday is concerned about their finances. Look around your office and realize that 1/5 of your day is lost by every person. And that is a pretty incredible statistic. And so, partnering and building education around your 401k is really a piece of the core win for an employer. So I just want to add that in there before we jump to our third item here, Seth.
So I got to tell you guys, this is hands down my favorite of our what we're covering here today, and that is to pay yourself first. And there is a very simple formula that we've got here outlined that will help you to kind of organize what does that look like?
Well, I like pay yourself first too, but it doesn't always work that way when I look at number one, it's paying somebody else, right? Taking care of your investments and your retirement and your savings plans, absolutely very, very important. Statistically, the best option is to put 20% into savings and investments. That's really what you should be doing, and living off of 80% of your money.
That's right. And you want to set aside, 50% of your take-home income on living expenses, things like food and rent, the pure essentials, and then 30% on clothing, education, transport, things that are important but kind of secondary to food and rent.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that a lot of people try to work backwards. They're like, oh, I make this much money, I can afford this apartment, I can go out to eat this much time, and then what do I have left over? Instead of figuring out like this is what I have. I was remarking to someone who came in the other day, and I remember this one lady telling me that she got her first job, and she had saved tremendously. I was shocked at her ability to save. And she said, well, when I got my first job, I never had a job before, so I never made any money. So the first thing I did was I signed up for the retirement plan, and I just had them take out the max. And I've never had it change, so I've never really realized what my real income was. Like I never experienced this larger amount and then figured out, I'm going to contribute to my 401k. So if you're new to investing and this is, your first, you're coming up to your first job, or you're just getting out of college and you happen to stumble across this show, consider yourself the luckiest human in the world, and just start putting in your 401k the max and just live off whatever that paycheck comes back. And then, you're going to be pretty close to that opportunity right there alone.
Yeah, you want to treat your savings and debt, like a bill, and set up auto pay, which 401k does the same thing, right? So it's getting drafted out of your check before you even realize it was there. And for the things that fall into that pay yourself first category, right? So you're paying down your mortgage, you're paying into your investment accounts. Just set up the auto pay. Just whatever day you get paid on, the 15th, 30th, whatever it might be, just have that draft take place the next day, and it'll be, socked away into something that's important to you long term before you even miss it.
Yeah, just create it as a bill. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Automating is so helpful in getting these things taken care of. And ongoing, so it's not that you don't miss an appointment that way. And I love what you had to say as far as the mindset there. Really, putting this first versus putting the rent or the house or all of those other payments that you might feel like is paying yourself, but really it's paying somebody else to do. So pay yourself first.
That mentality came to me from somebody that, probably I would never say that they mentored me officially, but I always looked at them as kind of a role model person. And I remember them telling me that, when we die and, people go through our stuff, they'll know what's important to us based on how we spend our money. And I always thought that was interesting because they said that they really intentionally try to write their first check out of their checkbook as soon as they get paid as being their tithe. That was just it. Like, that was the most important thing. That's the first thing I'm going to do, because if the first thing you do is everything but that, then those things are more important. And I always thought that was a profound perspective. Thought it was good, and something haven't perfectly lived by, but something I've actually really tried to do, because I think your testimony comes in all forms and fashions. Many areas I've failed at. That one I've actually done pretty well at sometimes. So, but I think that comes into kind of a point that we've done a number of shows on, which is, build a budget and monitor it, which is kind of a point around this pay it yourself. You really can't do that until you realize how you build your budget around that 80%. Because for some of our believers that are listening that, say, hey, listen, that 20% is, savings. And what about 10% for tithe, if that's what you do? And, maybe it's 10% tithe, 10% savings, and you're living off 80%, or it's 10% tithe and 15% savings. But build your budget off of that net number after you take care of those things.
Ben, you truly are a truth broker here today, giving us some wonderful words of wisdom. And you may have just heard that for the very first time, or you may have heard it for the umpteenth time and just need to hear it again. Regardless, you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're talking about planning for millennials here on Money on Tap, and we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Call us today at 855-226-8551 and get your free consultation with Ben Brayshaw or Seth Krussman or any one of our partners, and find out what's going on in your plan, your estate plan, your financial plan, or what you're planning at all, if nothing. Get it fixed, get it right, get it done today. Give us a call at 855-226-8551.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And we are talking about planning for millennials. And so far, we've covered start early, participate in the 401k and retirement plans, pay yourself first. And you know what, folks, you're believe it or not, you might be single and millennial right now, but we're still including this, no matter what, insurance. Insurance is a must. And we're talking about life and health insurance. And this is one of those pieces that is fundamental in financial planning for us, and making sure that you have all the bases covered and the risks covered when taking a look, kind of a top-down approach to financial planning. And here's why.
The first thing that comes to my mind, is probably people who are listening to this think, oh, well, I've got some health insurance at work and I've got life insurance, maybe, 1, 2, 4 times my salary at work. And, people say, well, why would we even have this conversation? I'm so young, I'm healthy. I mean, there's 1,000 different reasons we'd have this conversation. The first thing that comes to my mind in one of our 6 points here for me is just the insurability. So even if you're single or if you are married, I mean, obviously there's a life event issue there. But even if you're single, the insurability of the insurance is something that people don't think about. Like the ability to buy life insurance. Like you can buy term insurance. It's really cheap. It's inexpensive when you're really young and you're healthy. But you never know when you're going to have a health change. So I'll never forget this big time investment guy who I knew. He goes, one thing I always make sure I do, and I was thinking, oh, what's he going to do? It's going to be a big investment question. He goes, I always make sure I insure somebody's insurability. I was never even thinking we're having an insurance conversation, But
so I want to ask you. I know I'm kind of cutting into the conversation here, but from the perspective of somebody that's hearing this for the first time, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I simply mean that the fact that you might not be able to get insurance if you have a health event. I mean, people,
So you would lose your insurability, say, if you have some kind of a chronic illness or something pops up in your next physical or something.
Well,
right?
if you term out that you have terminal cancer or you have a heart disease or AFib or MS or any number of different issues, onsets of ALS, things that happen to people over time, it becomes either impossible to buy life insurance or it's extremely expensive to the point where it's unaffordable. And you may be planning on a family later in life. And we find that millennials do get married later. They do have children later in life. And that's something that's still on people's radar. It's just not, 25 years old or 22 years old. It's more like 32 or 35.
Yeah, I think the way to do it is, as you mentioned, Ben, that term insurance is incredibly cheap, right? And it's your health rating is priced around the date in which you purchase it. You go through a whole medical review process, and they determine what your health rating is, and then they issue that insurance contract based on it. The younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper the rate is. And so when the term is nearing its expiration, you're approaching 55, 60 years old, your insurable needs have changed. Now you do have the kids in the house and all those risks that you need to address. Whatever health rating you got on the initial issue of that term policy is still available to you at that same face amount. So that death benefit amount that you achieved at a low rate in your, mid-early 20s, whatever the case was.
Preferred non-smoker, athlete, Olympian.
That's right. Gold medalist, swimmer, right? Whatever the case is.
I mean, we both are still that, though, of course, Dan.
Prime of our lives.
So here's just an idea that came to me. And no kidding, I have no notes on this, but I was realizing that, some of these people might be out there doing a little dating right now, trying to meet Mr. or Mrs. Right. And when that resume comes up for, who you are, which some people do check out your credit score, right? Or what other assets you have on the table. This could be one of those, folks. You never know. It might seal the deal. You're already prepared. You're thinking ahead, walking into a safer situation already.
I don't know. I would run scared if that was if someone was wondering about the insurance I'm carrying already. But I think there's a whole nother piece. And, as we were kind of digging through this, Seth, just the whole concept of what some of this life insurance covers today, in different versions of the stuff that you can buy in the advancement. I mean, that's something that, I think, we should have you address.
Hey, thanks, Ben. I appreciate that you might be thinking about insurance and just, in one ear, out the other. It's not you. It's not now. It's your grandmother's, life insurance policy that did great. It passed off money to beneficiaries. It did what it was supposed to do. But when we're talking about insuring the insurability, here's some of the things that we can be discussing in this conversation, right? There's going to be a higher probability that in your lifetime, you might be experiencing a heart attack, cancer, stroke, terminal illness, or even long-term care events. Now, these term policies can cover a multitude of these events while it's still in, say, a term program. But then there's the ensuring that insurability piece that you want to consider, which is it can get converted into some kind of a permanent program. And that can actually, if you super fund that program, can turn into tax-free income for life or some kind of a future pension for yourself and your family. That is, frankly, it's one of the most amazing concepts inside of that insurance idea. So dig in, take a look. It's pretty amazing, folks.
Yeah, we do those conversion programs that Dan was talking about, and I think, you can. There's just so many pieces, right? I mean, the thing about the insurance world is that it's just this smorgasbord of stuff, and it gets people confused. And probably this conversation's confused a lot of people. Go to one of our insurance shows, right? But this is one of those things where you do a conversion and you create income. I mean, there's just a huge. We call it the Swiss Army knife. You can do almost anything with some of these insurance programs out there now, and they're meant to address a lot of stuff. We don't have time for all of that, but as we break into that conversation, as people need these things, guys, I think I think people don't really put value on areas that really do have intentional value. Kind of like when I was talking to that broker, I never thought he was going to have a value space on insurance, and it's something we need to. If you're a millennial, it's really important, more so than you think.
Number 5, invest according to your goals and values. So I think it's interesting that this kind of calls to maybe some of the conversation we were having around the IPOs and, what are some of the things you're passionate about, but also really understanding what are the risks in buying, what do you believe in? Because if you're buying a singular idea, that is not diversity, right? And what does diversification really offer, and how do you do that? One of the things I'm going to go back to this, our website. We have a phenomenal tool to help you understand as an investor, what do you have right now, and what does that translate to in terms of risk? If we have some kind of a significant event in the marketplace and we have a pullback, what are some of the expectations or realistic expectations you can have as far as how far your portfolio might drop down, and how does that align with who you are as an investor? Because this is the significance here, is that you need to be investing in a way that keeps you invested. If you're going to be that investor that just cannot tolerate certain risks of the marketplace, then what will happen is when that event happens, you'll be late to the show. You'll pull your money back out of the market as much as you can or whenever you can, and then you'll miss that opportunity for the growth that market story has continued to give us years and years and years, that accumulation of years of being invested.
Yeah, I really like that line he had. Just the, Seth, just the idea of just, invest in what you like, what you know. Like, I think there's 10 different ways to say that to people, but people don't hear that. How many times do we have conversations with people about stocks and they don't even know what the company does or...
Yeah, it's all too easy to chase returns you read in a publication, right, or some website, or some you sign up for stock tip of the week kind of a thing, and the reality is that by the time that's making its way to you, it's too late, right? There's a common catchphrase they use in all the financial shows, right? Sell the news, right?
Yeah.
So by the time you're hearing it, you should be selling it, not buying it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Short story before we wrap this piece up here is years and years ago. I don't even remember if it was a money publication or what it was, but they were given like the top 50 companies to invest in for that year, and I just created a mock portfolio out of this just to test run it and see how did this perform if I were to equally weight these ideas and pull it together as a portfolio. And it was exactly what you just said, Ben. It was published. And so it had already hit that cycle of growth that everybody was wanting to or expecting to get out of those ideas. And it was pretty much a failure. So there you go. We've covered a lot of bases here today with you folks, and we're going to land the plane with live within your means.
Well, this is like, hey, let's turn off the show. Don't listen. Like, this is, okay,
right.
I got that one. I don't want to hear anymore.
Debbie Downer.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I probably want to tell you what number 6 is at the end of talking about it than at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Live within your means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And that doesn't mean just, don't do this, don't enjoy that. What I think the conversation piece that we have around all of this is just completely living outside of your means. There's a statistic that 43% of millennials are using high interest loans to live their life, which is shocking because they're probably one of the best saving group of people as well. And I think that catches you off guard. But don't live outside of your means would be probably better than live within your means. Just because there's some obnoxious outside living that seems to be either a gross exaggeration of your assets or a gross under exaggeration with your income, I should say, for the millennials.
Yeah, we find in doing research for the show is that a disproportionate number of people in the millennial age group, that generation, have had to either take money out of retirement plans or leverage these high interest short-term loan opportunities to bring in cash to make ends meet. And from a financial planning perspective, this is the least efficient and most devastating way you can probably go about doing it. 37% of those surveyed here don't have $2,000 saved, which is, an incredibly low amount, and, leaves you open to all kinds of potential financial pitfalls.
Yeah, and 53% don't have 3 months of expenses saved, and 40% don't have a month of expenses saved. So there's a large disparity between what people are doing in the space and understanding what they need to have. There's a lot of consideration that they're all set.
Yeah, that's that kind of low level of rainy day fund is something that's just setting you up for failure if there is an employment issue or all the crazy things that come along these days.
I know I was joking around about it when we first started out, but I just wonder inside these statistics, and this is totally off track, are people thinking that they can fall back on, I live with mom and dad, or maybe they do. Maybe there's a large percentage that do, so they don't need the savings. That's sad, but, could that be a possible outcome?
They have this level of support that they feel is out there for them that leads them to live a little bit, high risk in their own personal world.
Absolutely.
So this really circles back to the number 3 for us, folks. If you're paying attention to number 3, which was pay yourself first, then these numbers change. And this is the assignment that we have for you today is after listening to this show, become one of those Money on Tap members that has gone out and made a difference in these numbers out here so that everybody knows, hey, pay yourself first. Start making sure that you've got some of these savings and other things taken care of before you go out and, buy the Tesla, whatever the thing is that you got in front of you today.
Well, there's a couple of things we've chatted about today. I think the things that we've talked about a little bit are, there's some financial awareness that needs to, be inside every investor, and millennials seem to be more attracted to that. We talked about 3 questions you can ask. Only, 84% of people don't get them right and 16% do. If you want those questions, give us a buzz. We'll email them over to you. You can email us, info@yourmoneyontap.com. Send us a request. We'll send you the email with the 3 questions. You pass that, we should sit down. You don't pass that, we need to sit down sooner. And, I think that's a kind of a fun way to try to engage. Like, where do you fall? Are you in the 16 or the 84%? I think that's the first thing. And you're going to.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about 401k plans and the value of that, both from an employer's perspective, relieving some of that concern that chews up so much of your employees' workday. That's a service that we've long offered here as kind of a community outreach. So if you own a business, if you have a 401k plan or you're considering offering one, one of the things that we do is worksite education for all the participants. So that's something that we can show up during the workday or immediately following and give everybody there a presentation around debt management, how to participate in a plan like that to take full advantage, considerations like Roth versus traditional, which Ben mentioned, and just some general budgeting expertise or advice that will have people walking away from that meeting feel a little bit more comfortable about their own personal picture, which as the employer translates directly to your bottom line.
Yeah, we've had private businesses and municipalities bring us in, and we've made presentations. And, if that's something that you're really interested in, we're happy to give you some references. I'm sure those organizations would be happy to speak to that. So, thanks for listening today, folks. Planning for millennials is maybe not the baby boomer conversation that a lot of people are listening to, but as you're engaging retirement or you're looking to engage retirement, there's principles here that, paying yourself first and setting up a budget and understanding your insurance space, understanding your values and how you're investing and how that corresponds to it and meeting those demands and needs and living within your means or not living outside of your means. Those are things that are relevant for every age bracket. And I would just encourage you that if you're not or you're struggling with some of this stuff, give us a call. We're happy to help you guys.
Folks, you listen to Money on Tap. And you know what? We've given you loads of stuff to think about this week. And if you're asking yourself, hey, how can I help Money on Tap out? Please go to your podcast venue, like, subscribe. That helps us out with everybody out there looking for some great information. Thanks so much. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.